In today's video, I'll be sharing my first draft for Game Week 1. Just before I get started, make sure to join my mini league for this season, where the league leader after each game week will be displayed here at the start of each team selection video. The code to join is on the screen. To begin with in goal, I've opted for Jordan Pickford. We've seen time and time again over the years in FPL how the top scoring goalkeepers are often from lower down teams in the division. While I don't expect Pickford to end up being one of the best keepers in the game, he does make plenty of saves, and Everton do have a good opening run of fixtures. If Sean Dyche can keep the Toffees' defence solid, like he did at times towards the end of last season, Pickford could end up being one of the best budget goalkeepers to go for this season. I was convinced that Pervis Estupiñán would rejoin the game this season priced at 5.5 million, so to see him given a price tag of just 5 million makes him a no-brainer in my eyes. The Brighton wingback picked up 1 goal and 7 assists last season, and I seem to remember him having a goal ruled out, and he also missed a couple of good goal-scoring opportunities across the campaign. Although McAllister has left to go to Liverpool, I still think Brighton will be a top 8 side this season, and although their FPL assets have increased in price, I still think certain players will offer great value for money. Trent Alexander-Arnold is a player who many of us expected to return to the game as a defender, which he has. However, the price tag of 8 million has deterred some fantasy managers from going there. I personally think 8 million is a completely fair price considering the multiple routes Trent has of returning FPL points. Along with clean sheets and set pieces, he'll also be making plenty of key passes in his newfound role in central midfield, and I personally think if he continues playing there, he'll pick up more bonus points than almost every player in the league this season. There's a fair few 5 million priced assets I could go for in this final defensive spot, but I've decided to go for William Saliba. Arsenal have a great set of fixtures to begin with, and Saliba was one of the standout defenders in the Premier League last season, up to when he unfortunately picked up an injury before Game Week 29. I expect Arsenal to start this season similar to last year, where they controlled plenty of games and didn't give the opposition much to feed off of, so the clean sheet potential is definitely there for Saliba, along with decent attacking threat from set pieces. Just before I get on with the midfield, make sure to send me your first drafts across on Twitter, and I'll make a future video where I review and rank them. Cheers guys. So I'm kicking off the midfield with an Arsenal double up, and it's Martin Odegaard. As people have already mentioned, Odegaard plays a similar role to what De Bruyne plays at City, but for a fraction of the price. And with that, I personally think he's worth the money. 8.5 million for the second top scoring midfielder in the game from last season seems just too good to turn down, and I think Odegaard will go on to have another fantastic year for the Gunners. He returned 15 goals and 8 assists last campaign, but one thing I like especially about the Arsenal midfielder is the fact that he also picked up 30 bonus points during that time. It certainly made things interesting with FPL dropping Bruno Fernandes' price to 8.5 million, but I still think that Marcus Rashford is the better pick out of the two for 0.5 million more. Rashford finished the 22-23 FPL season with 29 points more than Fernandes, and he also played fewer matches, and I personally think he'll still remain as United's main route to goals. He seems to really enjoy playing under Ten Hag, and he showed that by picking up a remarkable 17 attacking returns in the second half of last season. I don't think it matters whether Rashford plays up front or on the left-hand side. I still think he'll be a threat either way. So I've gone for Mitoma next in the midfield 5. I was quite surprised to see the Japanese international rejoin FPL at just 6.5 million, and I think he'll end up offering great value for money at that price. There are arguably a number of options to pick from in offensive positions for Brighton, including the likes of March, Gross, Enciso, Ferguson and João Pedro, but I like watching the way Mitoma plays, and I expect him to nail down that left wing spot for the most part. One thing I will watch out for is rotation when European games start for the Seagulls, but to begin with I think Mitoma will get a run of games in the starting 11. One noticeable change to my team from the previous draft I put together is Saka in place of Martinelli. I think it's amazing that Odegaard has been given a 2 million price increase from last season in FPL, yet Saka's price has only increased by 0.5 million. I do think he's one of the standout picks from players around that price bracket, especially as he's most likely nailed on the right side of a team that netted 88 times in the league last season, and of course he also has penalties. Although I don't expect it to be his primary position, I am aware that Havertz is also able to play on the right hand side, so again I'll be keeping an eye out for rotation when European games get going. I had Solly March in this final midfield spot in my previous draft. However, now that Mbemo has been reclassified as a midfielder, I just think he edges it as being the best 6.5 million midfielder. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people who think he's going to set the world alight, but Brentford have a decent set of fixtures to start the season with, and I'd expect Mbemo to line up either in a front two with Wissa, or on the right side of a front three. I don't think you can really go wrong with a penalty taker from a top half of the table team, who also don't have European matches to consider. Erling Haaland rejoins FPL at 14 million, and I think that's a totally fair price considering the ceiling of points he has the potential of reaching week to week. Man City have one of the best opening run of fixtures out of any team, so really the question is whether or not to double or even triple up on their assets. I'm personally not going to go there, mainly due to Pep Roulette, but also the fact that none of their other players typically return FPL points on a consistent basis. Along with that, we've got a ton of quality to choose from the 7 to 9 million bracket this season, and I think there's much better options elsewhere. Completing the starting 11 is Nkunku for Chelsea. There's a fair few mid-priced forward players to consider starting the season with, but I just think Chelsea have a fantastic opening run of games, and after spending 52 million on Nkunku, I doubt he's ever going to be benched, especially as the Blues are without European matches this campaign. I'm not sure which Chelsea side will show up this season, but I think they'll be much improved under Mauricio Pochettino. Having Nkunku here for 7.5 million also allows me to swap him out for Nicholas Jackson if he were to end up being the better option for Chelsea once the season gets underway. Which means that making the bench I've gone for João Virginia, Everton's backup goalie, Mings, Bayer and Semenyo from Bournemouth. It was between Mings and Botman for the 4.5 million defender spot, but Villa have much better fixtures up till when I plan on using my wildcard. Bayer, according to Burnley fans, is their best centre-back, and out of the 4 million defenders in the game, I think he's the pick of the bunch. Semenyo just joined Bournemouth for £9 million, so I'm thinking he could share minutes with Solanke, or even play alongside him at times during this season. When putting this draft together, my first thought was to look to wildcard at around Gameweek 8, which is when the fixtures for teams like Tottenham, Newcastle and Aston Villa start to turn for the better. So perhaps there'd be an opportunity to capitalise on that situation by bringing in a few assets from those teams. So that's my first draft for Game Week 1. Send me through your drafts on Twitter along with a few comments and I'll put some together to review in the next video. If you could put them together on fpl.team and send them through via a screenshot, that would be ideal. As always, cheers for watching guys. I look forward to seeing how your drafts shape up and also let me know what your thoughts are of mine. Take care and I'll see you again soon.